Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Tonight, we are hitting on one of the most competitive and unpredictable divisions in the NFL. I'm talking about the AFC North. With me, my guys, Mr. Mike Zappi, San Antonio, Texas, out in the woods. We've got Brett Bandick, Window 3, Winter Haven, Florida. Window 4, Mr. Idris Salam with the ill background, 50 years of hip-hop. Yes, sir, the Justin Tuck. Tom Brady's familiar with that. Mr. Bandick is also familiar with that.
True.
All right, gentlemen, I got to say, man, out of all the divisions in the NFL coming into the new year, I believe that this particular division, in addition to the NFC East, I would have to say probably the two most competitive off the rip. I think the AFC West could potentially have something to say about that. But undeniably, very competitive division. And, you know, there's a ton of storylines with this division as well. And we're going to go through a lot of unpacking because there is stories galore going down in this particular division. You know, you've got a team that is only 2 years removed from the Super Bowl in the Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
You have a team that's tied with the New England Patriots for the most Lombardis. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. We got Lamar Jackson after the up and down, getting paid and getting some weapons for the first time in his career. Baltimore Ravens did a pretty good job of surrounding him with a lot of talent at the skill positions. And we have a Cleveland Browns team that paid an awful lot, but I believe that they finally got their franchise quarterback. Obviously, he went through a lot of off-the-field issues, and now he has to perform. He has to live up to that contract. Of course, we're talking about Deshaun Watson, and that's where we're going to start. As you guys know, whenever we do our division previews, we start from the bottom and move on up. And we are starting with the Cleveland Browns. Let the viewers see our little metric on the bottom here. Finished 7-10-22. Last in the North. Key additions, former Giant, former Viking Dalvin Tomlinson via free agency. Safety Juan Thornhill. Defensive end Zadarius Smith. Quarterback Joshua Dobbs, which actually could be of some value because he's interchanging in the actual division. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman via the draft. Defensive tackle Sakai Ika via the draft. DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle. Key losses, former Patriot, former journeyman, current journeyman, Jacoby Brissett, signed by the Washington Commanders. Running back Kareem Hunt currently doesn't have a team. He recently was in New Orleans. We'll see if that leads to a deal. Chase Winovich signed with the Texans. Tavon Bryan signed with the Colts. Greedy Williams signing as a depth addition with the Eagles. And as the viewers can see on the bottom, I listed some of their key games. It goes without saying that every game in this division is going to mean something. I want to start off with you, Bretsky. What are your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns? Do you think just rip, baby? Do you think they've done enough to be a force in this division?
I think they absolutely have a shot at this division.
All right.
But I mean, this is by far one of the most hardest divisions to predict with the AFC West, the way the AFC East is going. It's very tough. I mean, any of these teams can win this division.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
You know, depending on the schedule, I think the Browns and the Ravens have a easier schedule than what the Bengals have. But at the end of the day, you know, it comes down to, you know, Deshaun Watson's play and what he can bring to the game. You know, he really hasn't played that much. You know, I really don't know what to get from him. I can't read him right. But with the loss of Kareem Hunt, assuming he's not going to sign with anybody else, that's a big loss for them. I mean, that 1-2 punch is absolutely huge, and especially in that division, the way everybody runs the ball, they play defense. That's a big loss for them. They got to rekindle some kind of relationship with Kareem Hunt or sign him or do something. They lose him. I mean, who's the backup? Who's the backup? Does anybody know that?
Yeah, I got to agree with Brett because Chubb, great running back.
But he's going to have a career year, but I understand Brett's point.
Yeah, he's been having some durability issues lately. And Kareem Hunt was a good spell for him.
He was great.
Williams is gone. Dalvin Tomlinson, I think he still has a little bit left in the tank, but it's a whole new scheme now. Deshaun Watson, we know what he can do. Now he has a full season, full training camp and everything. But I think the loss of Kareem Hunt's going to hurt on offense.
It will.
I think that's going to be the fact that Kareem Hunt did so much.
I think the way that they're going to ask of the workload of Nick Chubb is going to be comparable to what the New York Giants over the years have asked of Saquon Barkley, what the Minnesota Vikings have asked of Dalvin Cook over the years. I think it's going to be that kind of year. I think Chubb's going to have a phenomenal fantasy year. Let's say that first and foremost. But where I think this team got really nice is on the defense. And I know Zappy off air has been very opinionated on that. Zappy, what do you see from this Browns roster? And then we're going to go round robin and talk about the potential records. But I know Zappy wanted to speak on their defense.
I mean, to put it blunt, this team, they've got a championship defense. They have one of the better defenses in the AFC. The additions they added on the defensive side of the ball are great. I think everything fits in. And to go out and cut one of their starting defensive tackles only a few weeks ago, it goes and shows what this team has depth-wise. And then offensively, the biggest question mark is, I mean, yeah, you have Nick Chubb, but then you really going to put everything on Jerome Ford to come in and carry the load the way a Kareem Hunt would have? I don't think he's going to be able to. I think that's going to hurt the Browns in the long run, because if you're going to give Chubb the ball 25 to 30 times a game, we've seen his body's already taken some punishment early on.
And I think we can probably all agree, Zap, this may very well be the most physical division in all of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. That's always been the history of this division, whether it was the AFC Central or the AFC North. We've seen rivalries between Pittsburgh and Baltimore, some of the best games we've seen. And I mean, when we talk about Cleveland and Cincinnati, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, where the list goes on, absolutely, this is a great division. Looking at this team, I think the one thing I'm excited for offensively is the addition of Cedric Tillman. Off air, I did say I think they may have gotten the steal of the draft with that wide receiver. Even a guy like Randy Moss has came out and said he's the best thing that best receiver that's been drafted since '98, the year Randy Moss came out.
And that's a hell of a praise, because obviously Moss is speaking about himself. Yeah. And for him to put this kid even in the potential realm of being something like he was, that's a hell of a compliment. And you got a seasoned veteran in Amari Cooper, who, I got news for you, dude. Even with Jacoby Brissett, Amari Cooper had a very productive season. Donovan Peoples-Jones continues to get better.
Yeah.
I mean,
David Njoku's getting better.
Yeah. I think Peoples-Jones is going to have a much better year. I mean, you look at, 2022 NFL season highlights, Peoples-Jones is in at least 6 of those highlights out of everything on that list. Like the guy made some phenomenal catches last year, and I mean he's only going to improve. And Amari Cooper is just he's a veteran. He's going to do what he can. But argue with Zach as far as the steal the draft and Randy Moss's prediction on him. I mean that's bold. That's bold. I mean out of all the receivers to come out of the draft, dude. I mean that's.
I think there's some legitimacy to it. And
he fell in the draft because of an injury.
Right.
If not, he was going first round, no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, this particular receiving class is going to be interesting of rookies. Not to take it too far left, but you have Jordan Addison, who is going to be opposite Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. You have Jalen Hyatt in New York with my Giants that I think is definitely going to be a hell of a player. It looks like he's in his very young football journey in the pros, starting to master the route tree. So a lot of potential candidates to bust out and get offensive rookie of the year. And then if you talk about running backs, I mean, dude, Bijan has to lead the way until somebody proves me and probably everybody in this panel wrong. I think we all agree on that, on what Bijan can probably do, playing on the grown man level as a rook. But to Zappy's point, to Zappy's point, I do believe that the Cleveland Browns potentially have a championship caliber defense. You have Myles Garrett, who is one of the most underrated players. It seems like he's constantly under the radar and never getting the same kind of praise as your usual suspects that do. But he's a hell of a player. I really do like the Zadarius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson additions. I think it rounds out this defense to be physical and to also have speed on the edges. This is a very good football team on paper. Brett made a mention that he has to be able to get a better read on Deshaun, and it's hard to when, he had a career year in 2020, and obviously he only played the final month or so of last season. I believe that some solid points were made when it comes to the Kareem Hunt subtraction. I do think Nick Chubb is up for the task of being that running back. And I also think that with the receiving help and with a quality tight end and with a pretty good offensive line, I think there's going to be certain instances in certain games where you're going to be like, damn, they missed Kareem Hunt. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be something that prevents this team from making the playoffs. I've got the Cleveland Browns finishing at a solid 10-7, and they will be a wild card in the AFC. I'm going to say 10-7, and this division puts them at third. But I have them making the playoffs this year. I think this is a good football team.
I got them going 8-9. I'm still putting them in the basement. I think they'll be better, but AFC North, man, this is they got a stretch coming out right out the gate with the AFC North. I mean, right out.
I get it, dude. I get it. No, this is a tough one because you're 8-9, my 10-7. The difference is only a couple of plays in the grand scheme of things. This is going to be super tight division. Bretsky, what are your thoughts, man? How do you think this team finishes?
I'm gonna say, I'm kind of on the cusp of going, 9-8, 10-7. I'm gonna say 10-7, and they're gonna be better than Baltimore. So
does 10-7 get a second?
I have him in second. Yes, I have him in second.
All right, 10-7 in second. Mr. Zappi, what are your thoughts on where these Browns are going to finish?
They actually have one of the harder schedules in that division. Pittsburgh's got the easiest one in that division, believe it or not. I'm giving them a 9-8 record. Not that they're not a talented team. I just think they're going to lose a lot of close games, especially when in the fourth quarter when they should be running the ball. That's going to hurt them. So I think they're going to lose a lot of close games because of that reason. They won't have the balance they need, especially when you don't have that third down running back. So 9-8, fourth place in the division for them.
So fourth place in the division, and I'm assuming, while it is a possibility that they could all make the playoffs, I'm assuming that you have them missing.
I have them missing, yeah.
All right, so me and Brett got them in the playoffs. Idris has them with a losing record, one worse than you, and you have them missing as well. So, like I said, this is a tough one to figure, and you got four guys, and only two of us agree on the same win total, and I like that because it's cool to disagree. We're going to move it along to the team tied with the Patriots for the most Lombardis, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They finished 9-8 last year, third in the North. They missed the playoffs due to the final week of the season, Miami kicking their way in. Cornerback Patrick Peterson via free agency, I think that is a hell of a pickup, not just for the roster, but for the locker room. Wide receiver Allen Robinson, depth. I think his better days are behind him. I do like the Marcus Golden pickup.
Yeah.
Brendan Fahoku via free agency. I think he can help. Keanu Neal via free agency. These are quality pickups. These are all great team guys. Cornerback Joey Porter via the draft. Broderick Jones via the draft. Those are the two main ones. But I want to speak on Darnell Washington out of UGA. A guy that I actually wanted my New York Giants to draft, but we did end up trading for a very good tight end in Darren Waller. I believe that Darnell Washington, once he gets up to pro speed, he is very green and very raw. But I have a feeling that this kid can be a game changer and a hell of a mismatch for a lot of linebackers. Zappy, is that you, buddy? You got the window open? Is that the window open over there?
No.
I'm hearing some terrible feedback here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it too.
Yeah. Be strong, man. Be strong, man.
All right. Well, anyway, Darnell Washington, I think he has the skill set to be a hell of a tight end on the level. I'm talking about the absolute ceiling and best case scenario, like a Shannon Sharp. I think he's a hell of an athletic specimen. It's gonna be interesting. But the true definition and the true rhyme and reason of where this team's gonna go, I believe it comes down to quarterback Kenny Pickett, and if he could truly make the jump from year 1 to year 2, because Najee Harris, a year removed now from the Liz Frank injury, I think he's going to be able to have a nice season. And obviously, T.J. Watt, the best player on this football team, needs to play the full season or the majority of it, because when he plays, that can be the difference between this team winning 11 games and this team winning 7 or 8. This team is well coached. When I look at the injuries that they endured last year, but they barely missed the playoffs, I think it speaks volumes on the kind of coach that not only Mike Tomlin is, but it also speaks on the culture that this team has. Having said all that, I'm a little skeptical still with what they have at the receiver position. I'm not exactly high on Deontay Johnson. I'm not exactly high on Kenny Pickett just yet. I'm not sure. I think you could make a logical argument that Kenny Pickett is the worst quarterback in this division. And in a quarterback-driven league, I do think that he could lose them a couple of games that they could have or should have won, because I saw it last year at my own eyes. I think it's more like I got to see it. I got to see it before I give them a better record than I'm going to give them. For the first time in Mike Tomlin's career, sorry, Idris.
Not good.
For the first time in Mike Tomlin's career, I got these guys going 8-9. Losing record, but very respectable. Very respectable, but I got them going 8-9 and missing the playoffs. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah.
With Kenny Pickett, I told our Giants fans he is not the guy. He's good, but
in time he could be, but right now he's
in time. But I was like, we don't need to draft Pickett because he had the same issues Daniel Jones had, except he threw more interceptions and had more fumbles than Daniel Jones had. And I said, we don't need that. We don't need to start over. I think he'll do good. I think he'll do better because he has Mike Tomlin and he knows how to get quarterbacks. He knows how to bring them up some more.
Yeah, well, he's demanding a lot out of him. You know what I'm saying?
I think Najee have a good season this year. It's going to the play's going to be rely on the quarterback play, how they do, and we just got to see what type of jump he makes in his second year as a starter without being someone down his throat. Because last year,
I think they're a tough football team. I respect them. I just don't think they're making the playoffs. And 8-9, I got them finishing in 4th. But I still think that they're going to compete. They're going to compete with everybody.
I got them 9-8, but I have them missing the playoffs also. I don't think 3 teams will come out of that division anyway. So I think. So
you basically got a repeat of last year, same record.
Yeah, they can get 10-7, but they would have to do something early. They would have to jump.
Yeah, they got to get off to a good start. I know Zappy alluded to the fact that their schedule is actually a little easier than the Browns, because sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles with rosters and certain things, certain rotations of the schedule. Bretsky, what is your finish for the Steelers? Anything you want to add before we pass this out?
You literally took the words right out of my mouth. Like it's Mike Tomlin's first losing season. I also have them going 8-9.
Wow, we agree
yeah,
on both
I really
both
do.
teams so far.
I really do.
Wow.
Like you literally took it out of my mouth. I'm not too keen on their offensive coordinator. I don't think they have a vertical threat in the game. And Najee Harris can only do so much. And that's assuming he's going to.
I share your sentiments on that, Bretsky.
That's assuming that he's going to stay healthy. So, with that being said, I don't trust the play calling, and I don't trust the execution, let alone with a sophomore. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the kid can do, but that defense is going to keep them in games, and it really just depends on his play and his execution. But like I said, I don't see a vertical threat with this team. They don't have a deep threat.
I will say this. I have so much respect for their defense, that their defense is good enough that they could make a liar out of you and I and Idris, because their defense, if they take over at certain junctures of the season, that could be the difference between being a playoff team or missing, like we're happening to agree on.
Like I said, their defense is going to keep them in games. So it really just depends on quarterback play and him executing when he needs to.
I'll put it to you like this. I don't know. If this team played in the NFC, I think they would be a playoff team. The AFC is friggin' loaded this year more than most years. And
they're loaded.
They are loaded.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the great quarterbacks in that conference, I do have faith that Coach Tomlin will get this ship right with Kenny Pickett in time. But I just don't think this is the year that it works all the way through for them. So we all seem to agree, with the exception of hearing what Zappy has to say, and we're going to let him finish this team. Zap, your thoughts, Pittsburgh Steelers 2023 season.
You guys are sleeping on Pittsburgh. You guys are. I'm going to leave it that way. You guys are sleeping on Pittsburgh, because to say 8-9, no. I'm sorry. Kenny Pickett is the guy. Kenny Pickett is the guy. I mean, the guy finished the season 7-5 when he started, and that was after a shaky start. He finished the year strong. Najee Harris also started the year with that injury, something I brought up to Richie leading up to his fantasy football draft. And then he ended up having a great second half to the season. And the one guy you guys haven't even spoke about is George Pickens. That guy is going to be a monster. I don't care what anyone says. That guy is going to be
for you. We left him for you.
He's going to be a monster in this league. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you talk about
good cop.
You have, on the defensive side of the ball, you have probably the best safety in football in Minka Fitzpatrick. You have one of the best pass rushers in Watt. And you have a great defensive tackle in Cam Hayward. They have Patrick Peterson there. They get Joey Porter. They get Broderick Jones in the draft. And they also land Darnell Washington. They landed possibly 3 first-round guys in a span of 3 rounds. I thought Pittsburgh was one of the teams that won the draft. If you look at their schedule, they have the opportunity to start off the year 7-0. If just based off the teams they are playing. I don't know if you guys have actually looked. Yeah, look at the schedule, Brett. Go actually look at it. Look at the teams they're playing.
I did.
Exactly. That's why I said it depends on how they come out the gate.
I got them losing their opener.
I don't, because the 49ers have too many questions.
San Fran, right? San Fran?
Yeah.
San Fran is their opener.
What's the question? If the guy's not Josh Johnson, I think they could play quarterback.
But they're also facing a damn good defense, which you guys have alluded to. And they're playing behind their home crowd. I'll give Pittsburgh that win. I have Pittsburgh winning this division and going 12-5, because all their tough games are at home. And when you have to go to their home field against that defense and Mike Tomlin, 12-5.
So do you have them winning this division?
Yeah, I have them winning this division.
Yeah.
All their tough games are they really don't have any tough games. They really don't. They go break down their schedule. They don't have any tough games. And then when they play Cincinnati early, Joe Burrow probably won't be suiting up. So that's a blessing right there for them. San Francisco, I think week 1, and we've seen time and time again, San Francisco week 1 usually loses. Then they got Cleveland at home. That'll be a win. They go to Vegas and Houston. They'll win those 2 games. And then they get Baltimore at home, who they usually beat at home anyways. That's their first 5 weeks. You get them off to a 5-0 start, 5-1 or something like that, they're going to win that division. They're going to be so far ahead. When I look at what Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Cleveland has to start off the year with, that's going to be enough to separate Pittsburgh and give them the division. 12-5, first place. I stick with my bold statement I made earlier that Pittsburgh will make the playoffs and win the division.
So I'm assuming that since you're this high on them, you're assuming nobody gets hurt this year on Pittsburgh.
Well, that's always got to be the assumption. You can't say, well, if Najee Harris misses 2 weeks and then they have to rely on
Brett's prediction might have been different if they were rolling with the Tripster.
No, I like their team. What I like about it is they have all the pieces in place for Kenny Pickett to have a good year, because I do think teaming up Darnell Washington with Pat Freiermuth is going to help out things.
He's going to take Pat Freiermuth's job in the bigger scheme. He's going to be the better tight end by year 2. I give you that.
Yeah, and
I've seen what that kid can do in the SEC.
And
yes, I've seen what that kid has done in the SEC.
And go watch film on Calvin Austin. That's your deep threat, Brett. He's going to be a very solid deep threat for that team, and he had a lot of good plays last year for Pittsburgh. Deontay doesn't need to be everything, because George Pickens will be the number 1 receiver before the season is done.
No, he will. I agree with you on that one.
I'm going 12-5. This is a tough defense. To watch how that team finished the year with Mike Tomlin, I mean, this is a well-coached team. That is the one thing Pittsburgh is year in and year out, is they're well-coached.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Zappy has him 12-5. I have him 9-8. Brett has him 9-8. Idris has him 8-9. Zappy's the only guy that has them.
No.
I have him with the win record.
Yeah.
Hold on. Run that back.
I have the winning record.
Yeah. You.
Oh, 9-8.
Yeah, you both have them at 8 and
possibly 10-7.
Yeah.
I think they could push 10-7.
Richie, you and I have him at 8-9.
Yeah. All right, my bad. He just got him at 9-8.
Yeah, me and Zappy got to win records. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Zappy's the only guy that has him in the playoffs.
And winning the division.
Ooh, right.
It's possible.
The Baltimore Ravens, great friends of the Steelers, finished 10-7 in 22, second in the North, lost in the wild card round to the Bengals on a fumble that really swung that game around. If you watch the Richie X Jr. Sports podcast, you'll actually see it in the background. Odell Beckham Jr., veteran wide receiver addition, as well as former Patriot, former Eagle Nelson Aguilar. Cornerback Rock Yassin via free agency. Wide receiver Zay Flowers, Trenton Simpson, Tavius Robinson, all via the draft. Zappy says the Steelers won the draft. I think these guys did all right themselves. Key losses, defensive end Calais Campbell signing with the Atlanta Falcons. Tristan Colon signing with the Jets. Ben Powers signing with the Broncos. And the key games, and as you see all these key games going down on the ticker, they're very similar, all of these teams in the division. It goes without saying the 6 in this particular division really matter. At the Chargers, Week 12, I think that's an interesting matchup. At the Jags, Week 15. At the Niners, Week 16. Dolphins, Week 17. I got news for you. I think they got it kind of rough towards the end of the year. I think on a lot of metrics and a lot of ways, this, in some levels, is a make-or-break year for head coach Jim Harbaugh, because last year, for the first time in his coaching career, I think people really questioned some of his fourth-quarter decisions. They had a fourth-quarter meltdown against the Miami Dolphins and New York Giants and Buffalo Bills. Those are 3 games they probably should have won all 3. They didn't. They came away with 3 L's.
Yes. They should have beat Miami.
They should have beat us, and their season culminated with injured Lamar Jackson watching on the sidelines and them getting beat by the Cincinnati Bengals on a fumble on a quarterback keeper that Lamar is fumbling the ball on that. Speaking of Lamar, I think they did a hell of a job of getting this kid weapons. I do like the offensive philosophy in the sense that I feel that they are going to really make a concerted effort to push the ball down the field. You got Zay Flowers. OBJ, over a year removed now from that Super Bowl injury, I actually am calling for OBJ to have a bit of a career resurrection in this offense. I think for the first time in his career, their running back one is finally going to be healthy and produce. Mark Andrews, he is the best fantasy tight end not named Travis Kelce. And I actually like what they did on defense and like what they're continuing to build on defense. It goes without saying in most seasons that the two Pittsburgh-Baltimore games, more times than not, decide which of those teams is going to be jockeying for better playoff position or for, one in, one out, so to speak. I've got the Baltimore Ravens also going 10-7, similar to the Cleveland Browns, but I've got them finishing second in this division. I'm going to say with a 4-2 divisional record, I think that is the X factor that gives them second place as opposed to Cleveland, who I'm going to have going 3-3. I think Lamar Jackson is going to reach some new heights this particular season, and most importantly, I think Lamar Jackson is going to finish the season healthy. He will not be in the MVP discussion. I don't think it's going to be that kind of year, but I do believe that a solid second place finish. And I think the Ravens, if they're healthy, can be a factor in the playoffs. But I got them finishing second.
That's so crazy you say that because, as you mentioned, the latter part of their schedule, that is the big thing I'm looking at because I have this team at 1.9-2 going into that crazy.
I think they're going to be able – that's going to kind of knock them down a little.
Yeah.
I think that's going to prevent them from winning the division, dude.
And that's exactly how I see them.
But I view them as a playoff team.
I think for Baltimore, it comes down to that Miami game actually, week 17. If they lose that game, I see them finishing 11-6. If they win that game, I see them finishing 12-5. But Pittsburgh wins the division.
But buddy, check it out. Let me ask you a question. Will Tua be healthy at that juncture of the year? That's another question. Now, obviously, we got to talk about the AFC East at a later date. Hint, hint, fantasy weekend. But I'm
going with I never say he's gonna get hurt. I'm gonna go that Tua plays. I
hope you're right
with that. Yeah, I hope so too.
I know nobody on this panel wants to see that kid go through the hell he went through last year.
No, and that there's one thing. Well, not to get off track, Miami did work on their offense.
It's all good, buddy. It's an AFC show and it's pertinent. Let it rip.
But yeah, I look at this Baltimore team as they're going to get off to a great start as well, 9-2. But I mean, when you have to go on the road, I think they'll lose that Jacksonville game. I think they'll lose that 49er game. It comes down to that Miami game. I think they'll lose that at the Chargers.
So you're calling for a tough winter for the Ravens after a pretty good fall.
Yeah. I think they're going to have a very tough. I mean, the schedule says it. If we're going based off what's on paper right now, no, we haven't seen a game yet. I think they're going to be a better team. Getting those weapons in OBJ and Zay Flowers out there as well as with the return of Rashad Bateman, and not to mention David Ojabo.
Bateman's going to benefit the most from those two that are there now.
Yeah.
And Andrews is still the security blanket, but now he's the security blanket that you really have to account for because you finally got vertical threats that can run the route tree. OBJ, say what you want about him, that man can run the route tree.
He can run the route tree. And the one other thing I'm excited for with this team is David Ojabo. He's finally got an offseason where he's not dealing with a ruptured Achilles that he had at the scouting combine. Yeah. So, I mean, this kid is young. They've got a young team that's going to be good. They also have a pretty good safety out of Notre Dame that's entering year 2. Well, last year he did not prove to be a pretty good safety. So
he's gonna be good. I'm basically putting it. You know how Brett did that whole Eli Apple bullshit? I'm putting it on him this year. I believe in him.
Even sure if he was on the field because.
Yeah, no, I hope Kyle Hamilton makes.
Kyle Hamilton's gonna pan out.
I hope so because he
makes the jump. He was a beast in college. He struggled last year, but I have faith in him.
But yeah,
yeah,
like I said, 11-6, 12-5. It comes down to that Miami game for me.
I'm going 11-6 for everything Zappy said. I'm going 11-6. I think Lamar got his weapons he needed on the corners. OBJ, for one thing, OBJ can run a route. If he can stay healthy this year, he's going to be a problem out there. Mark Andrews, hey, throw him the ball. That's it. He's gonna be there.
Yeah. He ain't dropping it. He's gonna catch it, and he's a hell of a red zone threat.
He got it.
Like I said, he's the best fantasy tight end, not named Kelsey.
Yeah, he's gonna be open. He's gonna keep the ball in his hand too. Good kicker. Yeah, I'm going 11-6. Possibly 12-5.
Okay.
It all depends on, like I said, Tua. I hope the kid is healthy, but God, man.
Yeah, because that's going to be you and Zappy are both honing in on that Miami-Baltimore matchup that will Tua play. It's like so weird that we're just going to project an injury. It's just that after what we saw, it's kind of hard to not assume that it is a thing. I'm
pretty sure he's going to be shell-shocked a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, the kid went through a lot, and that is a massive game. Not to mention, it's a revenge game for Baltimore after they literally let them off the hook last year.
Let them off the hook ain't the word.
I mean, dude, if Baltimore finishes those 3 games that I named, they're the North champions last year.
Yeah.
They're the guys that it could have been a completely different year, but
because I was watching those games I was watching the Giants games, but they were showing the score, and I said, Baltimore got that game. It's over. And I'm like, they switched to the game. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, and when you think about this, it happened in 2 plays. It was a fumble. It was a botched snap that Jackson managed to throw directly into Julian Love's hands.
Right.
Then on the next possession, Kayvon Thibodeau got his first career sack and a strip sack recovering the fumble. It was like everything that could go right for the Giants in the last 7 minutes essentially did. But going back to that, this is what I mean about how fickle and how the margin of error in the NFL is no joke. Last year saw a season with the most one-score games in NFL history. But you think about it, dude. If the Giants don't win that game against the Ravens, we're not in the playoffs.
Not in the playoffs.
If the Ravens don't lose that game to Miami, Miami's not in the playoffs last year. The Steelers are in the playoffs. So it's funny. It's funny how these things work. But it goes to show that it's a lot of parity around the NFL. Yeah. Did we all weigh in on their final record? Bretsky, did you weigh in on this team's final record yet?
No, not yet. I'm about to. I have them going 9-8. I have them going 9-8. I have them going 9-8 and missing playoffs. Lamar got paid. He has been healthy towards the end of the year. You have OBJ coming, who hasn't played an NFL snap in a year and a half. And you guys are putting all this confidence into a number 2 receiver. Bateman is the number 1, yes. Actually, I lied. Andrews is number 1 because he's the security blanket of that team. He's getting older. I mean, he's still going to make his catches. He's still going to make his touchdowns. Bateman is the obvious deep threat. But I don't see OBJ backing that guy up. Like, you lose the speed of the game. He's coming off that kind of surgery. Like I said, he hasn't played a snap in a year and a half, guys. Not once single snap in the NFL. I don't
think OBJ necessarily has to be the number 1 for him to be a problem for.
I didn't say he was the number 1. I didn't say he was the number 1. Bateman is the number 1. And J.K. Dobbins, he still hasn't proven me wrong by staying healthy. They signed Melvin.
I agree with you there.
They signed Melvin Gordon, who fumbles the ball a lot. And their defense.
If Melvin Gordon's playing, they got issues.
No, they got issues.
That means that too
they
many
got
guys
issues
got
on the
hurt.
wrong side of the ball. They signed him, so it's like I don't know where to go with this. And I'm still picking them 9-8, missing the playoffs. Lamar got paid, and he's going to sit and collect his money. I don't see him having an MVP season. I don't see it. I don't see it.
You know what I see with OBJ? OBJ is a threat. He may not be as fast as he was, but his ability to run routes.
He's a decoy.
Fast, though.
He's a decoy.
That's going to help Bateman do his thing. That's going to help.
He's a decoy. He's a flat out decoy for the number 1 receiver.
Remember how Randy Moss was at the end of his career? He can still catch the ball, but they use him as a decoy a lot.
But just having him on the field, you got to account for him.
Yeah, that takes his safety away and your corner away. That takes them off the field.
But take this into consideration too. I think what makes this team potentially dangerous as the year moves along, OBJ is gonna enhance these other kids' growth in the sense of, mentoring them in the sense of how to run this route tree. Because OBJ is at a juncture of his career where I do think that he learned the hard way that it's not always greener on the other side. We saw how things went up in flames in Cleveland. He gave up a lot of money to go get a ring because the contract the Giants gave him got transferred to Cleveland, and then he basically squandered money because he was tired of that city. But the Ravens gave him a very fair contract, more than I believe that he should have got. But you know what? Yeah. I think that he's at a maturity in his career now where he's thankful for his situation, and I think he's going to perform. And he's never had a quarterback as athletic as Lamar
Jackson. With somebody he wants to play with.
Absolutely, and that goes a long way. I do tend to agree with you there, Idris. That goes a long way.
He wants to play with Action Jackson.
So I got them in the playoffs. Brett's got them missing. Zappy, what was your final record again for these guys?
11-6, 12-5, coming down to that Miami game. But either way,
so the only guy we got them. So Brett's the only guy that's got them missing.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm the only guy who's got
to go off that J.K. Dobbins thing. Yeah, he was injured early on, but last year when he finally did come in and play, he was averaging over 5.5 yards a carry. The guy
good
is
shout. That is a good shout. That is a good shout, Zach.
And with
That's
OBJ
a factual
on the field,
good shout.
This is going to open it up. It's going to open it up.
They have. I think them not having Greg Roman there anymore is going to go a long way. And this is the same thing when the 49ers let Greg Roman go. It was the same thing. It was the best thing that could have happened for them. And now we're seeing it in Baltimore. Funny how that works out. But I'm expecting J.K. Dobbins to have himself a good year. 1,100 yards, probably eight touchdowns on the ground. But they have a nice core of running backs to spread the wealth. It doesn't have to be just J.K.
You forgot about Jackson himself. All this is
and then that's that part too. I think the fact that they now have the weapons, you can no longer account.
Jackson wants to shut up a lot of the haters that he can't play in the pocket. He can't do this. He can't do that. This is the year that he's gonna be like, now tell me what I can't do.
And that's a beautiful thing.
The reason I only got them going 10-7 is because of the difficulty of their schedule down the stretch, which Zappy alluded to. Brett has them missing. The rest of us have them getting in. We'll see how it plays out. And like I said, it's very easy to disagree on this division because anyone can literally win this division. We're going to finalize this division preview with the defending North champions. They missed the Super Bowl by a game, finishing 12-4. Why 12-4? The DeMar Hamlin game. That's why. They won on the road last year, got a prove-it win in Buffalo, a game that they were not able to finish in the almost tragic DeMar Hamlin game. Thank God he's all right.
They won that game, the DeMar Hamlin game. I think they would have won that.
That game decided our fantasy league, and this has been said on the show in the past. Zappy and I decided to go first and second because of the unknown. We don't know how it was going to play out. Right. Brett's boy, cornerback Eli Apple, is a loss here, signing with the Miami Dolphins. Safety Jesse Bates, also down south with the Falcons. Tight end Hayden Hurst is a Panther now. Samaje Perine signed with the Broncos. It goes without saying that these are their key games. Obviously, anybody watching the show knows that obviously this is my pick to win the division because of the sheer fact that I didn't pick anybody else, as I alluded to. Short and sweet, the big question mark going in, and I don't think it's as much of a question mark as the media or Jamar Chase is making it out to be. Obviously, you're going to get worried when your franchise quarterback, who in his rookie year had a knee injury and now he has a different injury, you get worried. Joe Burrow is going to have a phenomenal season. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase potentially going to be the best duo in the NFL in terms of wide receivers. If there's a guy that I do question a little where his heart's at, where his head's at, that would be Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine was a nice, would you say, a compliment. Not on the level of a Kareem Hunt with Chubb, like we talked about, But Pirine was excellent at what he does. This offensive line lost a couple of guys, but they brought in a couple of guys that have completely different blocking schemes. So in that regard, I actually think that it might turn out well for them. I also think that Irv Smith Jr., if he finally stays healthy, could be an upgrade at the tight end position. I have a high faith in Joe Burrow. I believe that with the exception of Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes deserves that, he is the second best quarterback in the NFL currently. Do I think this defense is the 85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens or the 86 Giants or the 84 Niners? No, I don't. But I think they're good enough to get it done. I don't necessarily have this team hitting the 12-win plateau. I actually got them going 11-6 and winning this division with that record. I don't think anybody in this division is going to win 12 games because I think they're going to all beat the shit out of each other. But in the end, I think the Bengals have enough to win this division. And ultimately, it falls on, in my opinion, the second best quarterback in this league, Mr. Joe Burrow, the man who looks like Macaulay. You can't say enough about him. Ice water in his veins. In my opinion, they should have beat KC last year too, were it not for a couple of knuckleheaded moves. I'm going to take it a step further. This team's winning the AFC.
Ooh.
Okay.
And I'm not changing my mind when we do the East preview. And I'm not changing my mind.
Okay.
And if I do change my mind, then I'll snap it again and be like, I just changed my mind.
Well, this is live. This is live, and it's gonna. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll remember this. Internet always wins, so you can call me out on this. I got the Bengals going back to the Super Bowl.
Okay. I think the addition of Orlando Brown is good.
Yes, it's very good, especially when you take into consideration who they stole him from.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Jr. I don't know if you remember his father also played tight end for the Vikings as well, Irv Smith. But he was more. Yeah, y'all didn't know that. Yeah, look him up. Yeah, that's his son. Played tight end also. If he could stay healthy, that's the thing. If he could stay healthy, he's going to help Joe Burrow.
I've seen him do it with lesser talents. Irv Smith is
exactly.
Irv Smith is a
good
talented
tight end.
I think
P. Ryan. I think the loss of P. Ryan will hurt some
I tend to agree.
He's a good addition. He's a good complement behind Mixon, and it's like I said, it's Mixon's heart into it. We don't know.
He was essentially the pass catcher. Like, to me, his skill set is similar to a prime Deion Lewis or a prime Shane Vereen.
Exactly.
That's kind of the category that I put P. Ryan in.
He's not going to get you a lot of yards, but he's going to get you what you need. He's going to get you what you need.
But if called upon, he'll surprise you and he'll perform. He does what he's asked to do.
I think the defense, they showed up the defense. You know how I feel about Eli Apple. Hey, I don't think they lost anything with Eli Apple.
They upgraded there, my man. They upgraded there. Fucking Brett. He still got that look.
I said that because of him, because I know Eli. That's his
God help me. If Eli Apple has a big game against the Pats at the end of the year.
Oh my god! Oh, you're right. They're in the same.
Yeah,
division.
Dude, he's in Miami now because Jalen Ramsey's injury picked up Eli as insurance. Bro, if he balls out against the Patriots, Brett's not going to hear the end of it.
They played twice too.
Mr. Zappy.
I'm going to go 11-6, maybe 12-5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they'll win the division. But I think the tiebreaker will get with them in Baltimore.
That 11-6, by the way, gentlemen, is going to, in my opinion, my 11-6 gets them a 3 seed, just like last year. But they're still going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can agree. 3 seed. Jets going to the Super Bowl.
Too many questions. Too many.
I'm serious.
There's I love the Bengals. I love Joe Burrow, but there's just too many questions for me. For one, Joe Burrow's probably going to miss week 1 and 2 with that calf injury. And that scares me for a quarterback when it's his leg that he's pushing off of. I think that's going to be an injury that's going to linger throughout the season. I hate seeing hamstring and calf injuries, especially for certain positions. When you have that calf injury on that leg that you use to push off and put air behind the ball, that's going to hurt. The other one that I have questions about is Joe Mixon. This civil lawsuit that he's facing because of him providing the weapon and ammunition and knowingly providing it, I think is going to be a distraction for this team. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we're talking about a brand new secondary. You lost both your starting safeties. You lose your one starting cornerback. You still have Chidobe Awuzie. There's just too many questions right now. I think they're the fourth best defense in that division. I don't think they're better than Baltimore, Cleveland, or Pittsburgh defensively. And when you throw in all the question marks as far as how's Joe Burrow's leg going to hold up for 17 games, or is he? And I think he misses those first 2 games personally, and I think that's going to be the difference, honestly, for this team to make the playoffs or not.
I don't want to cut you off, and I'm going to let you finish. I don't think he's missing week 1, but that's just my opinion. Continue.
Just based on what I'm hearing right now, the progression and everything, it doesn't look like he's going to play those first 2 weeks. But I mean, medicine, time will tell. It's a long season. I don't think if they put him out there week 1, it's going to hurt them in the long run, is the way I look at it for this team.
So you're subscribing essentially to what his buddy Jamar Chase had to say. Would that be a safe assumption?
Yeah, because the season is not won in the first 2 weeks of the year. But when you look at their schedule, all their games they have to go to, that's a tall task. Going to Kansas City, going to Jacksonville. Yeah, they do get Buffalo at home. That's cool. But they have to go play some physical teams on the road. That, and to me,
this team over the course of the last couple of years has shown a certain moxie on the road that makes me believe in them, because I did say that I got them as my 3 and still winning this conference. To your point, I think the missing the 2 or 3 games, whatever have you, could be the difference between being an 11-win team or being a 13-win team. And I do agree with you, Zap, about your point on the defense. They might be the 4th worst defense in the division, but that still might be good enough to be a top 15 unit. That will be revealed.
Before Brett goes,
I don't think they're a top 15 unit right now, and that's speaking honestly. And when I look at all the rest of the NFL, just thinking about it quick, I don't see them as a top 15 unit. Look, I think the Cincinnati team is going to be in some fights this year, but I'm just too skeptical on that defensive side of the ball, especially their secondary. They're going to be facing some good wide receivers throughout the year. Those first 2 games, I think, will be the difference for them. They would be a 12-win team if it wasn't for those 2 first games. I have them going 10-7, missing the playoffs.
Ooh, 10-7 and missing. Wow. Okay. I like it. I
got a question for you guys. This would be Joe Mixon's second incident, because he had a thing coming out of college.
Yes, he did.
Let me ask you.
But that thing, we have the video of him knocking that girl out. This time he provided a gun. Is it better than? No, because he did it willingly.
Let me ask you. Does he get a contract extension?
No.
Nope.
That's what they drafted Chase Brown for, that reason.
Exactly.
No.
The same way.
Nope. He goes to he's going to go to Miami with Eli Apple.
What about Shooter McPherson, though? Shooter McPherson, in my opinion, with the exception of Justin Tucker, is the second best kicker in the league right now.
That's funny. He's the second kicker in their division, and he's also
exactly. So even if I'm putting them a little too high on defense, I will laugh my ass off if they land exactly on 15. That's like that Josh Donaldson grand slam that you and I prophesized.
I love McPherson because I just love his attitude, man. He's like,
the guy's a boss.
I'm good. I got it.
And
the guy's a boss.
I look at them. They started off the year last 0-2 as well.
Yes, they did, sir. They lost to your team in Pittsburgh.
But this time their schedule is just brutal. Like, I mean, they're playing a first-place schedule. That's exactly what happens when you win the division. You play
Indeed. And they did have a first place schedule last year as well. It was just that some of the first place teams they ran into were going through their own trials and tribs, because that's the crazy thing about the NFL and why parity is such a thing, because year to year it's so hard to gauge any kind of consistency. So when you look at anybody who pulls off a dynasty like a New England Patriots team under Belichick, and now the Chiefs are trying to achieve some of that, it just puts in perspective how tough it is to be good in consecutive years. Idris's cousin Aaron Moorhead alluded to that just because we did what we did last year doesn't mean we're going to do it again. And it reiterates how important re-embracing the journey is, because one year don't have a fucking thing to do with the next one. Bretsky, you're up.
And side note, they did finish.
Yeah.
16th last year.
Listen, boys. I have this team going 11-6. They're making
play
plays
again.
Yeah.
You agree again,
dude. I like you. Dude, you're literally taking every word out of my mouth tonight. But no, I have them.
I gotta let you talk.
I have them 11-6, winning the division. Yes, they lost a lot of veteran leadership on the backside of the ball, losing Eli Apple. But at the same time,
fuck out of here, dude.
At the same time, we're talking about Joe Cool here, guys. Joe fucking Cool. Did you see his performance in the Super Bowl against the Rams when his knee was shot? You're talking about a calf injury. This man is
I don't need a knee.
This man is playing week 1. He's going home alone style on everybody in this division and the league this year. Yes, they have a tougher schedule. They play the NFC West and the AFC South. I get it, and their own division. I get it. But we're talking about Joe Cool, Jamar Chase, Higgins. The only thing they need improvement on is the tight end position. That's the only thing they need improvement on. They improved their offensive line. And like I said, they lost Eli Apple, but they replaced. It is what it is.
Stop with this fucking Apple. You're making
Preach
sense.
that gospel, Brett. Preach that gospel, brother.
Listen,
no, he's on point. It's just he's doing that Eli Apple shit.
It's the Eli Apple, yeah.
Listen, they're losing a lot of veteran leadership on the backside of the ball. Okay,
Jesus.
So it really comes down to guys just executing when they have to. But
there
like
will
I said,
less fire extinguishers in Cincinnati this year.
We are talking about Joe fucking Cool.
I'm with Brett on that part, because in a pass-happy NFL, I think you could overcome not having the best defense, or actually the worst defense in your division.
This kid is old school, and he has like a Joe Namath kind of feel to him.
He's got the Joe Namath feel. He's got that thing. He's got that shit going on, dude. I must admit.
He's got it going on, guys. He's got it. He is playing week 1 and finishing the season. Him and Jamar Chase, the best quarterback, wide receiver duo in the league. Hands down.
Bretsky, let me ask you this. Who has more receiving yards this year, T. Higgins or Jamar Chase?
Jamar.
I'm actually going to disagree with you, maybe because Jamar has a little ding or two. I actually have T. Higgins leading this team in receiving yards, but I have Jamar hitting the end zone more often.
I'm saying it
again. I have the Bengals win the division. They're making it in.
What is going on here? Me and Brett agreed on 3 of these teams?
Dude, it's so weird, dude. It's so weird. We never agree on shit. Wow. We never agree on hardly anything.
No, we really don't. We really don't. Things are changing around here. Great show, gentlemen. I really appreciate you guys having the audacity to make some of the predictions that you made, myself included. That's what makes it fun. I like disagreeing, but still having logical, argumentative points. If you haven't already, guys, please make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and let us know what division you want us to talk about next. We do have our fantasy draft coming up, and I was considering possibly doing the AFC East preview, actually at our venue. I think Mr. Idris might be making that trip. I hope he does. For the guys, Mike Zappi, Idris Salam, Brett Bandick, I am your host, Richie, and we had a great time doing this show for you tonight.
Make sure y'all watch Mike Zappi and the Blair Witch Project Part 3.
Yes, sir.